Mehrva is the owner, proprietor of Café 78, as that translates as. Hello, Mehrva. Welcome to the show.
Hi, and thanks for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure, absolute honor to have her on the show. We go way back, as I say. We'll get to that in a moment. I'd like to begin the show with a question that I have, actually. Mohammed, what do you think? Tea or coffee? Iranians, are they more tea drinkers or coffee drinkers?
Definitely tea. Right?
I agree.
Mehrva, is that a tea drinker by a massive margin? Is that the case?
Yes. I still think that not only just tea, but especially for the ones who come to the cafes, when we started 18 years ago, we came up with this notion, which is called damnoush, which is herbal teas. Because when I opened the cafe, there were no such a thing as herbal teas. I mean, they existed, but they were at your grandmother's house and your aunt's house, but nothing that you would go and have in your house, or you go outside and have it. So we came up with this term called damnoush, and now this term is everywhere. So everybody drinks either damnoush or they will have tea.
And it's just me having coffee in the cafes.
No. It's not just you. There are lots of other people. I think there's a whole new generation who feels like coffee is something for them to explore. There has been a lot of places where they have started, roasting the coffees as well, which was not the case before. Mm-hmm. And so there's this small group of people, developing, and they're doing classes, they're doing tasting, they're doing all that stuff. So I think majority of the people, when they go outside, it's chai or damnoush is what.
What about tea with milk in? Is that ordered at all? Is that just me requesting that?
Yes,
my English
probably.
sensibility.
No. Actually, there are some, because I put that on the menu, I think, I don't know, some 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I actually have it as English tea. So some people like that, there's that thing
just
about
me. Your
England.
one and only customer is just me.
No, you're not the one and only. There's some people who like.
There's two more. Okay, Mehrva, I have another question here. What do you think is unique about Iranian cafe culture?
That's a good question. I think it's like a going out event. It's something that I think that's the difference. If people want to do something, they'll go to a cafe. I think in the Western world, particularly as far as I know, going to a cafe is part of your daily life. If you want to have fun, okay, let's go to a cafe is not the thing. I think probably if you're in the UK, probably you'll go and hang out in some pub. Or if you're in America, you go to a bar or whatever. But in Iran, you go to a cafe. It's an event. It's something that you do. Mm-hmm. But say in the Western world, from what I understand, every day you're going to work, you're going to stop by some brand name coffee, whatever, and you definitely go in there, get your coffee, get your whatever Danish that you want, and go to work. So it's a part of your life. In Iran, maybe there are some people who would like to do that, but it's a place that you go hang out. You still go with your friends. There are some people who still come to the cafes alone, but it's much more of a couples or friends. It's something that you do. It's not just a part of your routine.
So it's very much kind of a social thing. I guess I'm thinking now, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think one, it's a lack of alternatives for socializing, and also for younger people, probably the fact that they're probably living with their parents and they want to get out and meet people. It's very much the place to go and socialize or meet people, certainly outside of being seen by your parents. Is that the case, would you say?
I agree, definitely. I think that's the case, very much so. For a lot of people, I think a lot of young people, as you said, they don't have the privacy of having their own apartments or being, having roommates. I mean, whatever, which is not the case. I think only in the provinces, when people go to school, the universities, where they actually have their own flats, they have roommates. It's a different sort of a thing. But especially if you're in Tehran, 99%, I think they live with their parents. So what a best place to see their friends is beside the university or whatever, schools. That's where you're going to, meet up. I think restaurants don't have that. I mean, you will go to eat, but if you want to socialize, you definitely go to a cafe. And that has been established after so many years. Yeah. That was not the case. When we began in 2003, that was not the norm, it was the exception.
Yeah.
Now it's started to become norm for the younger people.
Oh, you're taking me back now, which leads me into my first interactions with Mehrva, because was it over 16 years ago now? I think it was, back in the day. There were, as you mentioned earlier, there were few cafes around town, and one of the cafes that we would go to would be Haftar Hash 78. It was one of the places to go. I remember also Gandhi Cafe on Gandhi Street in Tehran, slightly more north. But these would be the places that we would go and hang out, and it very much sort of ignited what became quite a vibrant cafe scene, I would say, at the time. And I think you were there at the beginning of that. You rode that wave. It was very much the place to go. Can you talk about those early days?
Yes, good memories of old days. In 2003 is when I opened the cafe. I was employed at that point, and every day I would want to go out somewhere just to have coffee, something. And there were maybe one or two places that I could go, maybe even one place that I could go and have some decent coffee. Everywhere else you would go just because it was the only other place you could get out. There were no other places you could go. So that was the thing. And it's like and they were usually in small shops. They were inside passages. For me, it was like, I really want to go to a cafe. What they were called at that point was coffee shop. And really, I wanted to have a decent cappuccino if I wanted to, a good espresso. And honestly, I think there was only one place that opened, and they actually were carrying a brand name coffee. They were trying to copy. I'm not going to name names. But I didn't want to have that brand name because I'm very anti-chains. I've always been. I don't like chains. So, and that's probably one of the reasons after that is where it is and not everywhere else, and probably not as hip and happening as it used to be at the beginning, because it was truly one of the first places where you could have an open space and feel, a good quality of coffee, which was my main thing. It's like, tea, okay, everybody does better tea, black tea, but I wanted decent coffee. And so my sense was like, I really wanted to have a space that was a bigger space that was on the side of the street where people actually can see inside, which was the biggest thing. I mean, when I saw this location that I am, we've been there for past 18 years. I have 9 meters of glass surrounding this cafe. I remember at the beginning, people, when they would come in, they would not even sit by the window because the window is a little further up from the street. And they were so concerned even about their legs being seen by the eye level of people who were walking. So, and they were asking me, could you have like a curtain or something? And I was like, no, I don't want to have any curtain. I want clarity. I want to be open. I don't want to have anything covered, And so we actually ended up having lots of plants by the window just to make people feel comfortable sitting. It's like, if you can't have it, you make it. What can you do? So
yeah, and you were quite successful, because back in the day, I had my first black coffee in your cafe.
There you go.
And before that, I would order coffee in coffee shops. We would get like instant coffee, and it was cold, tasting awful. The first decent coffee I had was in your cafe, and I think my first couple of dates were also in your cafe.
There we go.
Oh, and that was the case
for a lot of people.
That was the case for me as well. Actually, we had a question about that, Mama. We wanted to ask, like, I mean, you can spot the couples the first time they've met. I'm sure a lot of your customers are people meeting for the first time. One of the questions we wanted to ask was, how many people have gotten married after first meeting in your cafe? Do you have a number, or has anyone ever mentioned that?
Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, really?
Yes, lots of people actually.
Oh, wow.
Some of them even have children, and they would come back to the cafe.
Okay, there's something wrong with us, David, then.
Yes. What is it wrong with you guys? I don't know. No, but yes, we just celebrated the 18th birthday. Cafe entering and becoming legal 18 years. And I had asked a lot of friends to send me if they have any kind of memory about a cafe, if they wanted to say something, because this year, because of the COVID, we really couldn't have a celebration. So I knew people wouldn't come out, and I didn't want them to come out anyhow. I mean, to have, 100 people in one little space is not that good. So what we did was we asked, and actually a couple of people, they sent me a little, the photographs and memories of that's where we first met. That's where I proposed. I mean, I've had all kinds of stuff. So, yeah.
Oh, amazing. Which leads me on to my next question, actually, because I'm also curious as to whether you have any famous regulars.
Oh,
or just famous people. I'm sure you've had many famous people.
Yes.
Anyone you can name?
Anyone I can name? Well, actually, first when we started, as we were the one and only cafe in the region of the, theater culture, what we had was a lot of people who were involved with theater. They all came. People in music business as well, like Aghay Lutfi. He used to be one of our customers.
He's a
musician, right?
Musician, yes, yes.
Oh. He's a very
traditional,
renowned musician.
Yes, traditional musician.
Yeah.
He used to come and he used to bring some of his, students as well. At that point, Peyam Dehkordi was one of the better actors who was acting at that point. Then we had Aghay Samandarian.
I do remember Omar Rusta as well,
right
there, and Attila Pesyani. Yeah, we always used to
help me
sit
with
one
the names.
table
I'm terrible
apart.
with this. So yes, the whole Then Farhad Aish, as far as the people who were in the cinema business, Bahre Rahnama, just lots of people, a lot of people who. I think the thing about the cafe was that when it started, since I'm a photographer myself and I have a lot of artist friends, a lot of artists came and they hung out in the place. And it was sort of like their sanctuary in a way, and in a place where they could actually be. After that, a lot of other places, of course, slowly opened and, people decided to go with different places. A lot of the theaters themselves started having little cafes.
Yeah.
So then, people would hang out there. But no, we had a lot of people come, and some of them, they still hang out and come.
And certainly that area, actually, which is something I was hoping we would discuss, because before we started recording today, we were discussing how much renovation has happened around the area that your cafe, when we went there last week, actually, Mohammed and I went there to have a coffee. I had a coffee. Did you? No, we had tea.
We had that kind of like cold drinks.
It was too damn hot.
Well,
yeah,
it was Belfast, I think.
Oh yeah,
yeah, brilliant.
It's my own recipe. I
amazing.
That.
Care to explain?
Yeah,
briefly.
Well, all the drinks that we've had in the cafe, I've always wanted to name something. I mean, just to have like cucumber and whatever, it doesn't. It's not. I mean, when they write smoothie strawberry, which I hate, with a passion, try to create something that helps the language, not screw up the language. So for a lot of drinks, I decided that I wanted to name things that were going with different places. Okay, for me, Ireland, I've always loved. Belfast, I've always loved. And the green is, for me, Irish. Yeah. So I decided that that's what I'm going to call it. And I wanted to have a combination of something that was a cold drink with some of the Iranian extracts and with, some of the, like herbs and things in there. That's why I created that one. We have something with, which we call Florence. Which is a drink with watermelon. But I remember, many years ago when I went to Florence, they took me out to we have a bomb of Tehran, they took me to bomb of Florence, which is basically a roof of the city. Italians actually had watermelon slices that were sold on the street, which was, for me, it was like, oh, that's such a great idea. We don't have that in Iran. That's one of the only other things we don't have in Iran, actually, on the street. We sell a lot of things, but not that. So that's where this drink thing comes from.
David and I both testified that it was an amazing drink. So Good. If you happen to be around downtown, you might want to try that in Café After the Hash. So going back from the long tangent, David, you were saying you were talking about like the gentrification of the downtown again.
Certainly, there's been a lot of cafes that have been introduced in that area. So Café Type, I know is not too far from you. Café Nazdik, which is still quite popular. And now we're going to add links. So if anyone's coming to Tehran and wants to visit all these cool downtown cafes, just go to our website, www.askaniranian.com. Find this post, and we will have the links to those places. And of course, we will have the link to Café #78 there, and you can go find out more about that there. You're, of course, on Instagram. And where can they find you there?
The Instagram café.78 is what we are.
Excellent. So go there.
Yeah. And then we have a site and we have all the stuff.
Excellent. So can you talk about the sort of changes in that area that you're situated?
Sure. When I was looking to find a place to open the cafe 18 years ago, 2002, we started searching, and in 2003 we were able to find something that we could actually afford at that point. I wanted to have a big space, as I said. And for me, growing up in Tehran, the center of the action was that whole area. You know, one of your best gourmet grocery shops was Bazar Behjatabad. On that street, there were 3 different restaurants. Nayeb, down a little further down from us. Then there was this other one on the street, I forget.
There is Leon,
and
the restaurant, and there's
Leon,
a little bit up ahead. I don't remember the name.
Today seems like I'm forgetting all my names anyhow. So it's a bad name day.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, going back, that was the place for me. And also I lived downtown, and I just liked the charm of the downtown. And it made sense because the universities all are around there. The art university, the Danishgah El Musanat, it's just lots of places. It only made sense that there are a lot of other places. So
sorry to correct you. That's Amir Kabir, the former Polytechnic of Tehran.
Sorry.
And the name of the restaurant, was it like Restaurant Soren?
Soren. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I've been there.
That's what it was, Soren.
So what do you think the future of that area? It's going to continue in that way? More development, very gentrified. Your rent prices are going to go crazy.
Yes, they've already have. I think in the area of Sanai Street, which is a little further up from where we are, it's an Armenian neighborhood.
Yeah,
you were able to, afford to get something. Not anymore. It's a very expensive area.
And I wanted to ask something that I remember, something that we would always do. We would always check, is the cafe open today? Because very frequently, as I'm sure you're familiar with, Mehrva, cafes would be shut down, and for whatever reason. So the question I had was, how many times has your cafe been shut down?
Oh, that's a very good question. I don't even remember anymore.
It's been that many?
Yeah, honestly, I cannot. I mean, yes, there's been many, many times.
And we're probably tiptoeing around the point here, because when we mean shut down, it means by the Ministry of Culture has had an issue for whatever reason, and they have asked for the premises to be locked for so the public can't go in.
That will fall under municipality to deal with cafes, not Ministry of Culture. Sorry to correct you, but generally the city authorities go after discrepancies in public places.
Why would you be shut down?
There's an office called Amaken. Mm-hmm. That is an office that oversees the function of public spaces. Mm-hmm. And I think they exist in all over the world. I mean, if you're conducting a business, these are the offices that oversee the conducting of any businesses.
Enforcing your regulations.
Yeah, absolutely. They want to make sure that you have licenses, first of all, to actually operate. In Iran, those guys not only make sure that you have all those things, but they enforce some other moral codes as well. Things that are parts of the law in Iran, as far as the covering of a hijab, which is usually one of the items. Basically, also in a lot of places, when you're really popular, things are happening, they definitely come to make sure that things are under control. Mm-hmm. I think that's what it was when at the beginning, the place was crowded all the time. And they just wanted to make sure what was happening, so sort of controlling and making sure that, we have our licenses and what have you, and that actually people are behaving themselves. There are a lot of laws in Iran. The job of these guys is to actually make sure that they can enforce them. Mm-hmm. A lot of the times, a lot of people are breaking the laws and nothing happens. Actually, I'd say compared to the rest of the world, Iran is actually very lenient compared to that. Mm-hmm. It's just that there are certain things that they're very sensitive. Mm-hmm. And that is the hijab, the Islamic values is really important. That's where they're concentrating. Mm-hmm. To be fair to the whole situation, like at the beginning, I didn't even know that you could not smoke. Mm-hmm. because there is a law and it's been enforcing from 73 ایرانی is like 94.
Yeah.
From 1994, actually, there is a law that says that, smoking in covered public spaces is illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so nobody knows about this.
And it's not necessarily the case that somebody comes and hands you a new pamphlet that informs you about the new regulations. You got to go find out for yourself.
Sure.
And probably you get a gentle warning from the authorities on the first occasion. And
yes, but sometimes it was not gentle. But
yeah,
I mean,
gentle in quotes.
I remember, I think we opened in 2003. I think we were closed in 2004 for smoking.
Okay.
And it's, and since then it was like, actually for the birthday, somebody sent me photographs of tables of Hafta Dahash with cigarettes and people smoking and all that. And I mean, I have photos as well of that time where people used to smoke. And then when they came, and I think after 2005, you could not smoke in the cafe. And today, every day, somebody comes and says, can we smoke inside the cafe? The problem is, a lot of cafes allow people to smoke inside the cafes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You cannot do that, but everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
So then you're in a different situation. So I think closing of the cafes could have some good reasons sometimes and legal reasons.
Is it the case that it's a slap on the wrist and you go through a certain process of forms and then you open back up? And how long would that process take?
Let's see. I think depends how much that slap is going to be hard. I remember once they closed the cafe because of the smoking, because of the music. We were playing some music that had some words on it. Some woman was singing and was not supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were women working out on the floor, and that's a no-no. Mm-hmm. It's by law, it's a no-no.
Oh, seriously?
Is that
still the case?
Absolutely. And look what's happening.
Wow.
See, look, you're surprised.
I'm surprised because
basically anywhere you go, ladies are working the floor. They're serving you in a very nice and
equally as
professional
present,
manner.
if not more present than males.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
By law, they cannot.
Oh,
you
wow.
can work behind the counter. You can work in the kitchen, but you cannot work on the floor.
Oh, interesting.
It's part of the law. So because of those, they closed my cafe in midst of, at that point we were doing really great. 6 weeks. So that basically broke me. I was depressed because thinking, you come for a place 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and if it's closed, then you leave.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yes, they and what you do, it usually takes about 4 or 5 days. If you get your, stuff straightened out, it doesn't take that long. It takes that many. But as I said, in my case, the guy just lost my file. Mm-hmm. The file was lost. So 6 weeks it took before I was able to actually get all the documents again and get it open. But that's many years ago, as I said. Now, I think last time they closed us was about, 4 years ago. Not since then.
Well, hopefully that would be the last time.
Inshallah, because I'm one of the few places that obeys all the laws.
I'm still surprised by that. Like so many of the cafes I go to, they're smoking. It's strange.
Actually, economically, it's an unadvantageous competition. Because if I don't allow you to smoke, as I said, every day people come and ask, can we smoke in the cafe? And we'd say no, and they'll go down the street, and there would be inevitably within that block somewhere where they can smoke. And that to me is really unfair, but what am I to say?
A question that I had, I'm curious how you perceive changes in people throughout time. What's changed throughout your time of being a coffee shop owner?
Actually, a lot has changed. I think our society has changed in that respect. And of course, we see the reflection in the cafe culture. First of all, as you said, there are many, many more cafes. I think in the past 5 to 6 years, we have had cafes mushrooming everywhere. Honestly, it used to be that, people used to come from Niavaran, from, Saudatabad, Shahrak Gharb, you name it, Tehran, from all over the city, they would come to Hafta Dahash because Hafta Dahash was the one and only kind of type of a place that if you wanted to go, that was the one and only one at that point when we opened. Now it's not the case. I mean, you come out of your house and inevitably within, 10 minutes, there must be a cafe. There is everywhere in each neighborhood, everywhere in the city. So I think because of that has changed. So you have different clientele. For us, I think, I don't know, after, was it 88, I think? A lot of people left. My regular customer base left.
So let's help our audience out here. So 88, Mehrva is talking about 1388 in the Iranian calendar. And
which would be 2009.
And the big change then, I guess you're referring to, is the re-election of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad.
Right.
And the following protests.
Right. I think a lot of, as I said, my regular customer base, they left. The ones who were coming, there were a lot of intellectuals and a lot of people who disagreed with whatever. So they decided that they're going to leave. Then we used to have some students, but then they left as well because now there were many more cafes surrounding their universities within 10 minutes, around 5 minutes. What has happened is it used to be more intellectuals. Now it's more everybody. Mm-hmm. You have a wider range of people who go to cafes. The cafes have become a part of Iranian city culture for socialization. Now I get a lot of employees of different companies. They come together to the cafes. Maybe people don't want to have people in their houses anymore. Maybe it's because the houses have become smaller in the city, so people don't have spaces.
What has changed in the Iranian psyche, or what do you think has changed in aspirations for Iranians throughout your time of being on the other side of the table, or having them as your customers? What are they looking for? What's important to them? What's frustrating for them? Has much changed, or is it pretty much the same?
Unfortunately, I think a lot of younger generation, from what I hear, I think it's become worse. The situation with the inflation and not having a hope of, there used to be that you would think at some point that maybe if you could work hard, then at some point you're able to provide yourself with your own place of living. And that, I think, is completely gone with the situation now.
You reminded me of back in the day. For a short period, I was staying at my grandmother's, and she would always complain I'd have to be back at 9 o'clock at night. I was 30 years old at the time. Back at 9 o'clock at night, of course. And she said, why do you keep going to cafes, spending all this money on coffee? And like, it's not necessarily cheap to go to a coffee shop.
Sure.
And she would always say to me, save your money. Why do you, she's Turk. Money's important. Was important to her. She would, save your money. You should be buying a house. I was thinking, I said to her, like, how many coffees do I not have to buy to be able to buy a house? But the reason I mention this is because I myself have had this issue. I mean, renting is exceptionally expensive, and probably more than 100% of your wage would go on rent, and depending on which part of the city you choose to live. But it's just not really even a dream, I think, for a young person. It's just not going to happen. In Iran, you can't get a mortgage. Not in any sense of the Western understanding of a mortgage, and therefore,
or to my knowledge, in any other sense, you can't get a mortgage.
Well, and therefore, you are going to need 100% of the money to buy a house upfront. And I mean, ask any Westerner. Like, you work all day long. How long will it take you to have 100% of the house upfront to buy your house? It's not going to happen. They need a mortgage. But yeah, these are the pressures. As you mentioned, for younger people. So Mehrva, thank you ever so much for joining us on this show. It was amazing. I learned a considerable amount more than I expected to learn today. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Just once again, if anyone wishes to follow Café 78, they can go to Instagram and type in
Café.78.
So you can follow Café there.
The Belfast drink is highly recommended. Go drink that.
If you're in Tehran, you know where to go. Go down to Café. It's around the Haftatir area downtown. You've got a lot of choices around there, but you definitely have to check out Haftatir, a historic place for me, at least, and certainly for the Iranian coffee shop scene. Thank you once again.
Thank you, guys. Good luck.
Okay.
It was fun.